Hey everybody, welcome back to Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I'm your host Caleb.
Hi, I'm Seth. I talk Star Wars with this man.
All right. Well, normally we like to not talk about Star Wars right off the bat and kind of talk about our week and so what else we've been up to outside of the Star Wars community. Uh, I watched Arcane for the first time. We were talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
Watched that with
And
a friend.
my disposition towards certain characters.
Yeah, and our disagreement on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's one of those. Me and you, like, for the past, I'd say, half an hour have had, like, philosophical disagreements.
Yeah, like I'd say I'm 90% confident in the person that I agree with, and then like there's still that 10% where yeah, there's some arrogance to it, but I'd say 90% he's right, and especially considering the other people's argument I feel are flawed and half lies, whether they mean it to be or not. But that's just my opinion on it without going into. I guess it's a couple years old, so we could talk spoilers if we wanted.
Might as well. It's not like we
So in case somebody still wants to watch Arcane and hasn't had the chance, because season 2 doesn't come out till this year. Spoiler warning for Arcane season 1. Heimerdinger. I personally think Heimerdinger is mostly right. I'd say there are you bring up the issue of that he lives for a very long time and is not counting like the life expectancy of humans in his arguments, but at the same time the things that Jace and Victor are claiming that they want to do would never have been done in a single lifetime to begin with.
Except they did it in a single lifetime.
Except they did it wrong and it doesn't work.
I do like the scene where Jace is like, "Don't worry, it's perfectly safe." After like he and Victor have perfected it. Admittedly, Heimerdinger freaks out in that scene.
Yeah,
but that's deserved because he's like, yeah, just to show that we know what we're doing.
yeah, and in that he steps back and goes, "Okay."
Yeah, and you know what he says after that? Give it another 50 years.
Well, yeah, because the discoveries like that, because they are pushing the boundaries of science and the dangers of rushing that.
Also, was not originally intended for weapon use. Even Jace didn't want it to do that.
No,
That's the
council.
That's the council. They love that kind of stuff.
But
it's just for mining use. And I'm like, oh, I see. We're getting a Nobel situation.
But also, like, I'm gonna bring up the big one, and it's one you agreed with me on. Victor is using dark magic, and he knows it.
Yeah, he's like, okay, I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna try doing some bad shit.
And that just kind of proves Heimerdinger's point.
Admittedly, I don't think he knew it was gonna murder that lady super hard.
But yeah, because Heimerdinger even points out, hey, the color of... Like, he was fine when it was blue. He was like, we'll take our time with it, but I can agree with what you're doing now, because I can see you are, like, doing what you're claiming to do. So when the magic... I joke that it looks like...
evil purple.
Yeah, I joke that
because purple is the color of... Purple and black and like,
green.
Weird ghost shit.
And green.
Purple, black, and green are, like, the colors of, like, maybe leave that shit alone.
Especially when it comes to magic.
Color coordinated for your convenience. If you see these colors in Magic, get away from it.
Unless it's Final Fantasy. Green is fine.
Green is one of the...
Well, Final Fantasy VII specifically, like with the Mako.
No, like, in general, green is, like, typically it's either poison or life energy. So
well,
that's a 50-50 shot.
in 7, Green Mako is just any magic spell.
I'm not using 7 as an example.
Well, I am, because what does that fucking magic ball that they've got look like?
I don't know what the fuck that magic
It looks like Mako.
Mm.
That when they have the blue one that's actually like stable. I immediately when watching it with my friend was like, that's just Mako. That's just Final Fantasy VII Mako. And she's like, yeah, pretty much. They stabilized magic and are using it as a power source. It's Mako.
It's like, well, I guess if you're gonna have this thing that just doesn't really run out. Might as well.
It's Mako. Well, the problem with Final Fantasy VII's universe is it will run out because it is based off the live stream.
I do mean in Arcane.
In Arcane, though, yeah. Arcane, there is there's no evidence that it can run out from what we've seen yet. So, but yeah, no, like, Heimerdinger even steps back and is like, you know what, you're right. And, like, while he is still he's still taking precautions.
It's one of, like, Victor doesn't have that much time. Jace is being a politician.
And I think that's my real problem is their motives. Because they claim their motives is to make the lives of people in the Undercity better. And that they just want to use this to heal everybody. That's not their real motive. Their real motive is to heal Victor. And if it happens to heal everybody else in the process, great. But that's not what their motive is. Yeah. They are lying to... I think Jace is lying to himself. I think Jace knows that he's lying, but I think if he can take the moral high ground, he will. And I think that's the thing, is he's going to try to take the moral high ground. Victor is absolutely 100% lying. He's not even lying to himself. He knows he's lying. He's like... like... Victor's just lying out and out. He's working with the guy who's making drugs.
Yeah. Whose name I got wrong.
Yeah. No, not Silco, the other guy.
Fuck, what's his name?
The one who is actually in League of Legends. Let's see. Well, Shimmer's the name of the drug. Come on.
Guess we go.
Singed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Singed is the one that's making the drug that he's working with. Because Singed is making it for Silco.
Yeah.
Well, for him, in general, for himself. Because I think it's implied that Singed has been doing it even before working with Silco. Because, like, we get that scene with the axolotl. Poor axolotl. Also, that should have been the sign Victor should stop working for that guy, by the way. Once he saw, like, when he came back and he was doing those cruel experiments, like, when he goes the first time, okay, I can kind of get why you'd admire this guy, because he seems like a fascinating guy who has a strange fascination with evolution, but also, like, he hasn't done anything bad yet. He has a cool axolotl pet. And then you come back the second time and he's doing terrible things to that axolotl. That should have been your sign to cut and run.
Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, man. Like, also the fact that, like, Victor doesn't tell people that he's from the Undercity.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, you're from the Undercity?
Because he's ashamed. It's a shame thing.
Yeah, but also I don't think people from the Undercity are, like, legally allowed in up top.
No, because I imagine, because what, he was working with Heimerdinger before working...
I don't think Heimerdinger knows.
Okay, because he was...
Yeah, because, like, every time people, like, there's a lot of, like, stuff you have to get through.
Yeah.
In order to get to Piltover.
Yeah. I mean, I think Heimerdinger knew, because Heimerdinger doesn't seem to have those same, like, classist issues.
Is old, so he doesn't care.
Yeah, he doesn't have those same classism issues that a lot of the other council members have.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't make him good when it comes to the Undercity, because we learned that, he hasn't properly been to the Undercity in a while and actually seen the issues that they've been working, like, he hasn't done anything about it. So obviously that's where I'll give Heimerdinger some fault, is you failed your constituents pretty much, because you represent them. That is your role within the government and he's failed them. I will give Heimerdinger complete total shit for that. But when it comes to the hex tech, I think he's mostly right. I think Jace and Victor are rushing it, and we keep seeing evidence of the fact that they are indeed rushing it. And the more that they rush it, the more they are relying on the dark magic that he keeps warning them about. Because once he sees them do the purple magic, he's like, I've seen that before. That was the last time magic was used before you guys showed up, and it was not great.
Mm.
And then they kick him off the council.
Go away, Lou.
Go away now that you have actual correct opinions. That
Go away, gerbil. We don't need you.
It's like now that you're making sense.
It is fucked up that they do that, and that's one of the things I'm like, okay, Jace, you.
Well,
you
even
could've-
Jace does feel bad about it for a
feeling
minute.
bad is not the same as inaction.
No. Well, it's not even inaction. He actively was the one who started that vote. That's the opposite of inaction.
Sorry, I forgot that he's the one that starts it because it's been a while.
Yeah, because what's her name? The other. I got this. Oh, no, not there. I love that. I could do with that. Mel. So Mel's whole thing is that she's, kind of not sexually grooming him, but she is like politically grooming him to be this high member of the council, and so she manipulates him into starting that vote. She doesn't actually she starts the argument, but he's the one that starts the vote, if I remember correctly. So yeah, and then
yeah.
So that's my arguments on on that whole situation. Yeah. I think that Heimerdinger has mostly good points. I think where he fails is as a leader I think he's going to develop that skill though in season 2, because we see him working with Echo at the end, where he sees, things can be achieved in your lifetime that are good. Because that's the other thing is I think the other thing is he doesn't think that humans can achieve a lot of good in their lifetime, in a single lifetime, because I think he's just seen so much bad, and so seeing that Echo and the fire flight, they've done so much good for each other within less than a lifetime, because Echo is still practically a kid, he's about the same age as Jinx at this point, so about 17 to 19, practically a kid still. Yet he's done all this, and it was within 7 years at most that this happened, within 5 to 7 years that he did this. So I think Heimerdinger is on his way to proving himself as a character. Once we get season 2, I also think narratively, Caitlyn's mom is dead. Not because because obviously it didn't directly hit her. It actually directly hits Jace the most, because Jace is standing dead center when it hits the building. But Jace isn't gonna die because he cannot. He is canonically supposed to live till League happens. But Caitlyn's mom is not protected by that same stuff, and I think it makes good writing if she dies to kind of manipulate the situation between Caitlyn, Vi, and Jinx.
Yeah, but there's also no narrative purpose to keep her around.
That we know of at the moment, because we're not in the writers' room talking the show.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know what they're
from observation. It's all right.
Because that's the other thing. We can only take speculation based on what we see in the show.
We can only guess.
Yeah, because they might have a full story arc for Caitlyn's mom planned.
Maybe they do. Maybe
because
they don't.
we're not in the writers' room. We don't know what they're thinking.
Yeah.
But I personally think it would make sense in order to create more tension between Vi and Jinx and Caitlyn, to do that. Only because I think it would motivate, and we talked about this off screen, but for the audience, I think that having Caitlyn's mom die will, because in season 1, I said this to you, Caitlyn is still trying to give some benefit of the doubt to Jinx. Not a lot. Not a lot of benefit of the doubt, but still trying to give some, because she cares about Vi, and Vi wants to give that benefit of the doubt, right? The problem is Jinx is not giving Vi enough space to where she can have both, because Vi wants both. Vi wants her sister and her girlfriend. She cannot have both. Narratively, that is what the story is telling us, that she cannot have both, and Jinx is forcing her to make that decision throughout season 1. She does not make a decision by the end of season 1, obviously. She is still trying to fight for both. I think season 2 is going to change the dynamic to where now Caitlyn is also going to force Vi to have to make a choice. Because if Jinx kills Caitlyn's mom, there's no way Caitlyn's going to forgive that.
Probably not.
Like, while her and her mom are not on the best, or like they're not on 100% good standing, they are on good enough standing that if her mom dies, it will affect her. Because even if you hate your parent, like your parent dies, that's still gonna affect you in some way. But yeah. So that's my thought on Arcane.
Yeah.
I liked it. I'm excited for season 2. I watched it at the perfect time, I guess, because I didn't know season 2 was coming out, and while I was watching it with my friend, I was looking up, and I'm like, oh, season 2 is right around the corner. Because it's like November, I think, or something, October, November.
I didn't really do much this week. I just kind of worked. I tried playing some Elden Ring. I got through a couple of bosses. I had like a full day Friday, and I like was explaining to you that.
Yeah, because you had work, and then you also were up early that day.
So Friday was my day off, so I had to do all.
Oh, I thought you.
Friday was my only day off because I have to go and work.
Is next week when you start the 10 o'clock shift?
No, started those this week. On Monday.
Then why can't we? This is an off-air talk about Boom Boys.
Oh no, because I end at 10. Like the store closes at 10.
Oh,
that's
okay.
Why.
Okay. Yeah. So then, yeah, that's what I meant. It's
Yeah.
like, but yeah, you started your day earlier than that though.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Friday was my only day off for this week.
Oh, but next week you will be there until 10.
Next week I'm there until 10.
Oh, okay.
And yesterday I had lunch with a family friend, but I got up at 8 because I was hungry and we didn't have any food in the house, so I walked to the store, got food, met up with them at 10, had lunch. This was my half-sister's birthday. Gave her a phone call because she lives over in Mississippi with my other family. Talked with my other family and my dad for like a couple of hours.
Mm-hmm.
And to try and organize something for me and my brother and my dad, because we're all adults and have busy lives.
Yep.
So I got that done. Then a little bit before, called my mom because I'm like, hey, need to figure out what to do with this tax stuff. Talked with her for an hour. Then got on the call for Boom Boys. Stayed in there to like 2.
Yeah, and then you just couldn't sleep after.
And then I couldn't sleep until 5.
Yeah.
Then I went to bed, woke up at 8, hung out with Kiari, Sarah, and Nick, and John played a game to here. So, for those of you who are wondering, I'm operating off of 3 hours of sleep.
You're doing well, though, for that.
Yeah, surprisingly.
You haven't crashed yet.
Yep. Once we get done with this, I'm
It's
going
crash
to take
time.
a nap when I get home.
Yep.
And then I'm going to go to work.
Yep. Crash time as soon as you
Yep.
get off of here.
That was my day yesterday, and that is a busy day.
And then Wednesday, I actually also, speaking of D&D stuff,
Yeah.
started developing some characters for a new campaign that I'm working on, which will be on the channel, but it's not gonna be something y'all see for a few months. But we started working on it, so develop some characters. I talked with you last night about some of those and the fun of the world building of like what's gonna happen there, and because it is gonna be canon to the rest of the campaigns. Because I operate on all my campaigns exist within kind of the same setting for D&D anyways. Obviously, my D&D and Star Wars games don't cross over, just my D&D ones. It's actually going to be the earliest in the timeline to kind of give
I remember you telling me this.
To give a little sneak peek for the fans.
I think it's more of a like gothic horror and body horror tone, is what
it's
you
more
said?
gothic. Yeah, it's more gothic. Because it's set in a very familiar setting for horror D&D fans. I'll leave it at that.
I guess as like a slight
But I
Not
did some
into that.
I did some research, and that's why it has to be the
Mhm.
earliest, because I almost made it kind of along the same period, but then I did like
The math.
the math. Well, because thankfully there are some timeline conversion stuff out there for D&D, because there are very many planes of existence with very many different timeline they all use a different time system. So thankfully somebody has done the conversions to be like, when it's this year in this setting, it is this year in this setting. And so I did that, and it told me where when it takes place on the Forgotten Realms timeline. Grim Hollow, I had to kind of bullshit when that takes place on the Forgotten Realms timeline, because it's not an official D&D
Grim
setting.
Hollow has events that happen.
Well, it's
but
also
it gives you no years.
It's also
for it.
well, I mean, but it's also not an official setting. So like, I can't be like, oh, this is when it takes place in comparison to Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
As far as like specific events, just isolating Grim Hollow, I'm doing more and more research. Apparently, they want to create a time, like, because apparently, if you're in their in Ghostfire Gaming's Discord, where their devs are actually very they are very public and talk a lot, and they're like, yeah, we're trying to work on a timeline, but like that just hasn't come about yet. Like, they've been working on it for at least 2 years now, a timeline, which I can see why, because there's a lot of vagueness to it.
Yeah.
I think it works so in the favor of Grim Hollow that for the most part it's vague. I like having numbers, but not everybody does.
I'm someone who, like, if big world events are like stories, I typically will see like, oh,
like
this is
like Valakin, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, sticking with Grim Hollow, for example, Valakin, which is very much heavily based on like Nordic and like that kind of Viking mythology. That's gonna be a lot of like vagueness type stuff, and because it's basically stories that are being passed down from person to person, and that makes sense, because they even represent, like, when you read the campaign setting book, that's how it's presented. It's presented as these are like the writings of the stories that have been passed down, and so like, and especially like the world starting event for Valakin, which is them, or not the world starting, but like the reason Valakin is founded, which is like the 7 heroes killing the Great Worm. Very much like a similar type of story to like something you'd find in I just forgot the name. Classic like legend
okay. Well,
with dragon.
is that the story of Sigurd?
It's similar, yeah. It's like,
or Siegfried. Sorry.
Yeah, I was also thinking the one that we've made fun of, the sci-fi version.
Oh, Beowulf.
Yeah, it's very similar to like Beowulf in that, which is also like inspired by that same like that kind of culture, right? Because it's still that like not like that early Anglo-Saxon like Nordic with a little bit of early English, like that type of storytelling, and that's what I view Valakin as. And I think, and we're gonna get a lot more of that from Grim Hollow, because Ghostfire is printing Valakin stuff soon, and so I'm excited about that. I did pre-order that a while back, so I'm excited when that comes out. Because we're getting a new adventure, we're getting a more in-depth Valakin book, like just how the clans and everything work. So that'll be interesting to play with when we get more of that. I hope they do that for all the set. Like, I would love a Barak one, because like, I think you and I really like Barak specifically.
I like Barak just because I made a character that's from there, but also I'm the one of our group who goes and like researches the places we're gonna go to,
and they all have like different types of horror that's attached to them. Like, they're all dark fantasy with a like, they all have eldritch connections, but like each one is a different type of like kind of thing. Whereas like Astoya, for example, is undead.
Astoya is like undead and vampires.
Valakin has the cold fire, which is like this more of a spiritual thing going on. Well, it's like a spiritual and a dragon. Like, it's a little,
it's one of those,
like nature.
Yeah, like a natural phenomenon there. Meanwhile, Barak is like, we're fucked, I guess, but we can't let anyone know we're fucked.
Yeah, because theirs is like political with that eldritch.
Political with like a slightly
body horror almost.
Slightly body horror. Meanwhile,
Where you're going currently, Charnal, that is absolutely like spirits and like ghosts and stuff.
Ghosts and stuff were real mad because someone fucked up the human elf thing. I think
The dark elves.
Crisis. They were not happy about shit, and they were like, as a matter of fact, fuck you.
So I've recently been like cataloging where I think some of these major events take place. So like I cataloged where I think when Barak was founded, and based on like the reading and my interpretations of like how recent some of the events are versus how far away some of the other ones are. Because sometimes they'll be like, yeah, it was 1,000 years before this thing and this thing happened, and I'm like, okay, that tells me at least 1,000 years up on the timeline, or back on the timeline rather. And then like, but other times they're just like, it happened recently,
maybe like 2-3 generations ago. We're not sure.
And it's just like, okay, that
right. Like, as I understand it, and this is a wild. So there is, long time ago, gods come into existence. Whatever, they show up, I guess.
And even before God's End, they're slowly dying still in the background.
Yeah, because they get like down to 4 before the God's End. Meanwhile, while there are like a bunch of gods, they make the Great Worm, Gormadraug, and they're like, we've made him immortal. Now to be horrible to him.
Yeah, and that would be stuff that's like so far back that I'm not even going to calculate it, because that's just...
It's like creation myth stuff.
Yeah.
And eventually Gormadraug is like, fuck this, it sucks. And he's like, I have 4 kids of my own. I'm gonna pit them against each other, and whoever wins is my favorite. And it's like, alright.
Meanwhile, the elves are kind of off doing their own thing, having a nice, pretty society, and then humans show up.
And then after they kill each other for a while, because that's how people are, they're like, hey man, can we cool it? And they're like, I don't know, I guess.
And while humans are showing up there, they're also showing up in other areas. The dwarves are starting to mine further, so that way they don't deal with the humans.
Yes. And they're like, oh, fuck, who are all these sleeping people?
Humans start to found Barak, and then like a couple
bit of
hundred,
divine assistance.
Yeah, and then like a couple hundred years into that, like Astoria gets founded, and then like a couple hundred years after that, Barak's like, but we want Astoria, and so then that starts a war.
That starts a conflict. And eventually
Barak just backs out.
Barak's like, fuck this, we're leaving. It's not worth it to deal with this bullshit.
But we still want a war with you at some point.
We'll fight you, just not today.
Yeah. We're giving up our forts here in Astoria.
Yeah. Meanwhile, there's Merencio, which is a bank.
Yeah. Astoria also had, like, after the war ends, they have, like, an earthquake, which causes the fog that creates the vampire crisis.
Okay.
Because they have that earthquake after, and that's kind of... They find old Astoria underneath their new city.
For clarification, I only have information from the player's guide. So So you don't know about Novastoria,
which is the new city, which is...
No, that's the capital.
Yep.
It's written
But
in there.
underneath was...
There is a big city of undead hanging out.
Which was opened by an earthquake.
Okay, I didn't know about the earthquake thing. I just knew there was one underneath there.
Yeah, it was opened by the earthquake. And that's why there's the undead problem. And then there's a civil war going on between the Astorian people as well. But they're also like, we're not going to kill each other completely because in case Barak comes back.
Yeah. Let's see.
And then on top of that, they've got... but yeah.
And so...
Yeah, no, we're good. What were you saying?
And so, one of the things that mentions for, like, Astoria is that they will, like, throw parties to, like, bring adventurers here.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those things where it's like, going to these parties never works out for adventurers. Like, ever. Another one is from, like, there's an excerpt, because certain ones of these have, like, little excerpts that are not related to a, there's another, like, side story if you go through the whole player's guide where it's two brothers.
Yeah.
So I've read all of that, and I'm like, oh, that tracks. But the excerpt from Astoria from one of them is like, hey, if you see or hear anyone, if you see anyone in the woods, don't talk to them. If you hear anyone crying out for mercy or help, don't go there because there is no word for mercy in Estoyan.
Yep.
The language, not the people.
Yeah, and then there's also like one more place. Wait.
There's Morencia, which I think is.
That's
a
where
bank?
there's
Or it might be
Morencia. There's
Leash.
no Morencia is the bank, and then Leash is where the Weeping Pox is from.
Okay, and then there's Tolomel, which is like a weird city.
Well,
state.
that's Tolomel is technically part of Charnot.
Is it like
because that's the ancient Elven city.
Yeah. Is it like Luxembourg, where it's like a country that's just a cities?
Yeah, it's a city state.
Okay.
So is Morentia and
Yeah.
Leash.
But Morencia is like an island.
Yeah. Like Leash, Morencia, and Tolomel is
So
are all
like Tolomel, I understand is like where like
that's the ancient Elven city.
Yeah. So elves coming back there is like a little pilgrimage thing that's not uncommon.
Yeah, because basically they supposedly came from there even before they went to where Charnot was.
Yeah.
Where the Grove Maze was, and then stuff went down there. Because after they made peace, some of the elves were like, "We don't want peace," and so
And the humans were like,
they also didn't want peace.
"Okay."
And then there was a misunderstanding about a very Game of Thrones type misunderstanding of a kidnapping that wasn't a kidnapping.
Yeah.
And so then they.
And it's like, and now we're all fucked.
Yeah, and then the elves cast a curse that
They
created dark elves and also created the.
I like how the sentence for that is essentially like they were going to cast a curse, then the curse casting got interrupted, which is even worse. And I'm like, what, were you planning to stop halfway through?
But yeah, but that's Grim Hollow.
Yeah. I do not feel good about the Bull Jacks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We can talk. That episode hasn't aired yet, so we won't talk about that yet.
I won't say anything more than that.
Yeah, I haven't even edited it yet for even the Patreon yet. So
I don't blame you for that, man. Like, we got done with it yesterday, and it was pretty long.
yeah, and usually it was only our usual 2 hours. So, and there's stuff I'm gonna edit out.
Yeah.
But because I'll cut out some time stuff, like setting up fights.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's get into actual news though for this week, because we got a couple pieces of Star Wars news. So in comic book news this week, Dark Horse is releasing all of the Vader's Castle comics in a collection, which is good news, as they continue to kind of reprint comics from the IDW era of comics, because they did the same thing with High Republic Adventures, because IDW was the one publishing those at the time, although that's now obviously starting with Phase 2 that changed. Phase 1 was IDW still, but once Phase 2 started, it was Dark Horse. So IDW has been, or Dark Horse rather, has been republishing IDW comics, and and this is especially good because apparently, according to like what I saw in the Star Wars Newsnet article and some research, this series in particular became harder to find after IDW lost their license, so it almost became lost media, and so it's good that Dark Horse is like, yeah, we're gonna solve that problem for y'all by reprinting it, because we don't really want lost media in comics, or in anything rather, but I mean, comics especially can be hard to.
It happens. I don't necessarily like it.
Yeah. So Star Wars Vader's Castle, the Deluxe Library Collection, is what they're calling it, and it will be released on September 24th. So only a few months out. That's not too bad. In time for almost time for Halloween, which means you can reread it if you like your spooky Star Wars comics. Which I'm curious what they're going to do for this year, because they've kind of done a couple different things since Dark Horse took over, because they did the Tales from Jabba's Palace, then Tales from the Death Star. So I'm curious what they'll do this year. In television news, we finally got it. We got a trailer for The Acolyte, and the show is approaching fast. Well, let's go ahead and, because we've already watched the trailer, but we're going to watch it again with you guys, and then we'll share our thoughts on it.
Close your eyes. Your eyes can deceive you. We must not trust them.
I like that we start on the Jedi Temple.
Tell me what comes into your mind.
Life. Balance. I see fire.
Yeah. Get right into it. So close.
Someone is killing Jedi. It doesn't make sense.
What happened?
I sensed darkness.
There's Vanessa.
This isn't about good or bad. This is about power and who is allowed to use it.
What is that?
All right, so it's coming right up. Thoughts, opinions.
I'm tired.
I'm pumped. I'm pumped.
That's not to say that the trailer is bad. It's just like I am.
Yeah.
Battery is low.
Oh, it's starting to catch up with you now.
Yeah. But I'll finish this up. I don't dislike it, but I'm also I'm a little Star Wars'd out recently.
Oh, okay. Is it from doing the show or?
I'll talk with you about that after.
Okay.
But I am looking forward to it because it'll be nice to see something that isn't like jammed in between other stuff that we've seen.
Yeah, like
because that's one of the things like I've discussed on the show a couple times. I'm like, either take us back to when there's a different problem, or into the future where there's a different problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because the movies are kind of scrunched together.
Yeah, it's getting us out of I guess it is in between stuff we know, but it's in a different part of the in between stuff we know. It's like stuff that we like. This is still 100 years of stuff that we don't know.
Yeah.
Because it's 100 years before Phantom Menace, so there's still a lot that we don't know.
I do like that she tried to jump a Jedi with knives in like a soup kitchen, I guess.
Yeah. I'm excited. There's a lot of interesting things to watch about this, and you know, the showrunner Leslie Headland said that like the Acolyte themselves are not like, we don't really know what they are, like, because like people ask directly like, oh, is she the Sith, like is our title character the Sith, and she's like, watch the show to find out and understand like the Sith issue of the show, because a lot of people are speculating on how, for example, with the Jedi scene, they're saying, oh, all those Jedi should die because they saw a red lightsaber. We talked about this in the car. Red lightsaber doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. However, I'm gonna say that from a force push, man, come on.
Well, they're saying like they should die like from like the encounter as a whole.
Oh,
like that they should die because for narrative reasons, not for. They're saying they're saying narratively because Jedi are not supposed to know the Sith are back, they should die, and it's like that red lightsaber doesn't mean Sith. It just means, we talked about this, it just means dark side force user, who it just means that they've bled their crystal, and that's all that means. And we've seen a non-Sith bleed a crystal.
I will say though, from like the two moves there, I am not like, from that specific sequence of like, I've thrown a lightsaber into some trees to make them fall over. And
I also think there's some editing tricks there where I don't think the I sense something is in the same scene as that.
No, I think that's something else. But I'll say like against an opponent, the Fallen, I'll call them that because I don't fucking know what that is, who that is in the story yet. I'm not impressed.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not okay. Sure, be showy, I guess.
I think it's just a cool moment because
It is a cool moment,
but
but
that's
I'm
about it.
also
That's
like,
about it. It's a cool moment. That's about
It's
it.
one of those things where I'm like, cool trick. Am I supposed to take you seriously as a threat?
Yeah. And so I'm interested, and of course it's only a couple months. Like,
Yeah. We'll see when we see.
yeah, we've got time. It's got, let's see, it's got about 3 months. Well, 2 and some odd change. So I'm excited. We'll get there. Going into movies though, for fans of the entire franchise, we're getting something special this upcoming Star Wars Day. All 9 saga films returning to theaters on May 4th. And there will be, keeping kind of to the Acolyte stuff, there will be an exclusive first look at the Acolyte tied to the Phantom Menace screenings at AMC theaters. So I think I know what I'll be doing for Star Wars Day. Gotta go see Phantom Menace again in theaters and get that Acolyte tie-in information. Continuing with some excitement going on in the fan community, we did get some word of when Star Wars Celebration Japan tickets will be selling.
We won't be going.
No, we won't be going. But we also know when it will be taking place as well as like when they'll be on sale. Tickets will be going on sale May 2nd this year. And then the event itself will be April 18th to 20th next year. So
we might not be going, but maybe you can.
yeah, I know we know a lot of people that are going to be going, but we're not able to go. So it's just how it is sometimes. But let's get into today's actual topic.
Yeah.
Well, I still got you.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. I don't mean to.
No, you're good. We're going to talk about Tales from the Occlusion Zone, Survivors. And, yeah, so this is your spoiler warning for that short story. Found in last month's Star Wars Insider. Or this month's, I guess, technically still. But yeah, so last time we left off, the Adrens were spotted by Nihil and captured.
Mm-hmm.
They're not Nihil.
Yeah, which is resolved fairly immediately.
I'd say it's a couple pages in. Well, it's a couple paragraph, like not a page in. It's a page in, because it's initially like they're holding the Adrens at gunpoint, inspecting them. Thankfully, Pika and Joss were smart enough to be like, let's remove our RDF logos from our uniforms before we go into Nihil space.
Just in case.
And so, but they still spot like the outline of where the patch was. But the distraction of them trying to question the Adrens is enough for Pika to start some shit and get her gun to go off and kind of take the advantage. Where we learn that, oh no, those are not Nihil, they are also RDC.
Yeah, and they've just been like, essentially they've been waiting for like a Nihil ship to be like, hey, we got screwed over at a raid, you mind getting us out of here?
Yeah, because their plan is to get out. They want to get out. Because they've been here for months. They've been essentially here since the shield, since the occlusion zone went up.
Yep.
From the sounds of it, because they were already in the zone and then it went up, and then they've kind of been there.
And these not Nihil are a lieutenant and a private and their droid companion.
Yeah, and so we get to know them a little bit more. The new guy, less so the lieutenant. Lieutenant's kind of harsh and cold demeanor, purely about surviving and like getting out. And so
and there's just dead Nihil littered around the ship.
Yeah, because they killed a bunch of them to take the ship, and they kind of just left the bodies there.
Because it's like, where are they gonna go?
You toss them out the ship, just like in my Edge of the Empire games, where they would just take them out the airlock. You don't let them stink up the ship.
I should mention that this ship is fucked.
Yeah, it's not
this
working.
This ship is not going anywhere.
It's not working. Because they have...
It's floating around in real space.
Yeah, so they've got a... On the plus side, they've got a little anti-scav droid thing
Yeah.
activated that prevents the scav droids from tearing their ship apart.
On the downside, apart from basic like life support system, nothing else is working.
Yeah, including specifically the Nihil Path engine does not work, which is
It's not like the Path engine really would have helped them much.
well with the anti-scav things they could have gotten them out because that's what they're counting on of being able to get out. It's kind of the whole point of why they're going to do what they're going to do next time.
I think they tried it and it didn't work
Well,
because
because
this one is
It doesn't
damaged.
work. Yeah, it doesn't. It's damaged, and so
They're like, this one is held together with like electrical tape and hope.
yeah. So after kind of figuring out who's who and what's going on, they decide to take Joss and Pika's ship and take the long beam rather than stick with the Nihil ship.
Yeah.
Because obviously the long beam can move.
The long beam can move and also it's capable of actually protecting itself.
Also, the lieutenants outvoted on that decision.
Yeah.
And so they moved the anti-scav droid device onto the long beam, so that way the long beam will be protected. And they decided that their next course of action is to just go to Ryloth because they need supplies.
Yeah.
Because they're basically going to run out of supplies in a month, especially now that they've just picked up 2 more people than they initially had planned. And so, and a droid, 2 more people and a droid.
Yeah, but you can feed the droid a Milky Way bar and he'll be fine.
Yeah. So they're like, okay, well, let's go to Ryloth because we need supplies, and then we can figure out what to do next after that. And also, of course, Joss is freaking out internally because he's like, I gotta take care of my wife and our upcoming child because it's only a few months out. We gotta get out of here.
Yep.
So
This was supposed to be an easy mission, and Joss is like, this is a lot more than I thought it would be.
should have just gone to the beach and gone on vacation.
Yep. But nope, we decided to do the right thing.
And so they decide to go to Ryloth, and while they're on the trip, they're just talking to each other and getting to know each other, having dinner.
And they almost break through to the lieutenant.
Yeah, because they, so she is Arcanian, which is a pale race that have like the pale eyes. See, they're in a lot of Old Republic stuff in Legends. It's kind of where they come from, is from the Tales of the Jedi stuff.
Yeah, I think I've seen one before.
Arcajeth and Jariel is one, although she's an offshoot. She's not like the main species. And so, because in Legends they used to experiment on their own people.
Yeah.
That's in Legends though. In canon, none of that, as far as we know, happened.
I think it was for one of the games you talked about doing that I looked through the species one for that.
Oh yeah, it was for our Tales of the Jedi campaign that we were gonna do. But yeah, so
Also, John wants to know.
he's gonna be even more mad now that he knows a third game's coming.
He's like, you mean to tell me he has time?
He has time to do 3 D&D games?
No, 2. And also, the scheduling for those is difficult as it is.
Yeah, one of those only gets done about once to twice a month. And then we're also struggling to figure out a starting time for the other one. Well, it's not that we don't have a starting time, it's that we need to bump up the starting time, but it's impossible. Anyways, back to...
And also, we're going to be taking a 3-month break on that.
Yeah. The Arcanian, though, he basically, Josh is like, hey, so do you ever miss your homeworld? Tell me what that's like. And I think it's a multi-layered question. It's definitely a trying to catch her off guard, but also trying to get to genuinely know her, and he's also trying to get her to kind of ease her guard around him, because she's very guarded. She's been very guarded, very aggressive, I guess is the word. Standoffish. Yeah, that's a better word. That's a much better word. So she just doesn't trust them, and Josh, to be fair, is also I don't quite trust them yet either.
Yeah.
So,
well, the droid is pointing things out that everyone already knows.
She didn't like that. You asked that.
It's
Yeah,
I'm aware.
yeah, I can see it on her face. I can read that too. I can read her face on that too.
What she means to say is, "You can go." And it's like, I get it.
I love when they're eating and the private's like, "Oh man, thank you. It's been forever since I had like something decent for a minute, even if it is just military rations."
Yeah.
And she gives a look, and then he kind of like nudges her, and she's like,
They were adequate.
and he's like, what she means is thank you.
She's like, I think what she says is like they had the perfect balance of
Yeah.
proteins,
Yeah,
carbohydrates.
yeah.
And it's like, she means thank you. Don't worry.
Don't worry, that's her being grateful. But yeah, so while they're eating though, the private is also like working on like a comm device, a Nihil comm device, and trying to like get it to function and kind of find a signal. And just as like we're about to get more information about the Arcanian, the radio starts working.
Woo.
Sort of.
Sort of. It's doing the thing.
It's
that,
doing
like,
the in and out signal, not quite going through.
It's doing the thing that someone in a horror movie should just ignore.
Um,
Because anytime this happens, it almost always invites more trouble.
Yeah. So what they're doing though is they learn that somebody's essentially doing a distress call and that they're a prisoner on a Nihil ship, and they're basically going, "Hey, if somebody can come get us, that'd be great." And so,
Oh, I can't wait to see how this goes.
yeah. So this mission is no longer go to Ryloth; it's go intercept that prison ship for multiple reasons, mainly because initially Josh and Pike are like, "It's the right thing to do. We should be helping people while we're out here." That's kind of why we're here to begin with, is to help people. And so that's kind of the argument. The other argument is working Nihil Path engine. Because they were like, "Well, what makes you think one would work on there?" And they're like, "Because it's a prison ship, and they would be keeping that up a little bit better when it comes to their being able to travel from place to place." So that's the arguments that are made.
Yeah.
So they decide to hold a vote on whether or not they should go. Droid immediately is like, "Lieutenant doesn't want to go," and Josh is like, "Let her vote for herself."
Yep.
And meanwhile, Josh is also internalizing his own argument on for and against doing it. And surprisingly, Lieutenant is fine with doing it.
Yeah.
Private, not surprisingly, is fine with doing it because he also wants to do the right thing. Pika is fine doing it. Joss is the one that
like,
says no.
Yeah, no.
He's like, "I know I argued for it, but I've had some seconds to think about it." And like he doesn't get a chance to explain why, but we know why. But the the characters don't know why. Because that's where the story ends, is with Joss going, "I'm not sure about this."
Yeah, essentially he says, "I don't want to risk it because," and da-da-da-da-da.
And we know,
Ellipses, sorry.
and we know the reason why is because he's worried about his pregnant wife. And he's like, "I don't want to risk her going into danger." Yeah, I think it says, "I don't want to risk you," I think was the last thing. And then, so I guess...
And it's like, well, too bad, buddy, because you've been outvoted.
You're the one who started this vote.
It's like, fuck.
But
My
yeah.
own hubris.
So that's where it ends. I kind of like that this one... So far, the High Republic short stories have been, like, very different. Well,
for the most part, one and done.
One and done. I'd say Starlight and Enlightenment were very similar in how they did things, and that they were stories that were about the place, and like some of the characters that were involved with that place. So like with Starlight, it was initially about Joss and Adren because they worked on it, and then they left, and then it became about Jaheen and everybody that kind of was upkeeping Starlight. And then Enlightenment was always about the patrons that would come in, and it was kind of a Cheers sort of thing where it was about the people coming into the bar. But it would also be about their stories, and we'd learn about like their points of view on the Force, as well as just current events at the time of the game of Phase 2. And so, and most of it was also about our poor boy who gets sacrificed, Keith, Sarapath. Keth Sarapath.
His
Keith.
cousin Keith.
His cousin Keith. Well, it could be probably pronounced either way from reading it phonetically, but it's Keth. So Keth, it's focused on Keth, but it wasn't always about Keth. I'd say majority actually weren't about Keth. And then, but those were each like stories about the place. And that's what I thought Tales from the Occlusion Zone was going to be,
But it so far has been
a very straightforward just story. Like it's almost like getting
continuous.
Yeah, it's almost like it's like we're getting new chapters every month of it, and so it's like we're done with chapter 3. What's going to happen next? Because this is the third part of the story so far, right? Or fourth? Yeah. So we're done with chapter 3. Let's get on to chapter 4 and find out how they do on the ship. And I kind of like that. That's kind of the approach for this one. I kind of like the almost like we're getting a monthly new chapter to a book. More of a novella, I guess, really. So I'm kind of liking that. But I also would have been curious if they had gone the route of, all right, we know about Joss and Adren. Let's focus on some other characters that are in the Occlusion Zone. But also, Joss and Adren get in the spotlight. I do not I do not mind at all because I do like those characters. So that's the other thing. I really like them. I mean, they're some of my favorite non-Force using characters in the High Republic. Obviously, you have other characters like Geode and the vessel crew that I also like. Did you just get my joke from last night on that one?
I got it then, but I didn't want to say anything.
But yeah, so I'm liking this. It's
why can't I remember?
Because it's a short story, though. I'll say I'll only really give it a 7.5. It's one of those things of once we get the full story, that could change my opinion.
Geode Leox. It's not A1. A1's a different character. The hell is her name? She's really important.
I'll pull up so that way I can see if you get it.
Fuck. There's like a whole guild thing.
It's the Bind Guild.
Well, I know that she doesn't use that last name. It's not Sasha. Who the fuck is Sasha? No, that's Sache. Sache is a different character from a different point in fuck.
You were right that it starts with an A initially.
Well, it can't be Avon or Avar.
It's Affy.
Oh, god damn it.
Yeah.
Holloway.
Hollow. Just Hollow.
Why do I keep...
Affy Hollow. Yeah. You almost got it. But yeah. So what
3
are your...
hours of sleep is not good for...
So what are your thoughts, though?
It's alright.
Kind of on that same point as me, kind of just waiting to see where it goes.
Yeah.
I like where it's going, though. I really do. I think Lydia Kane, because she's the one that's been writing these. I mean, she wrote Cataclysm, and so... Right? Cataclysm? Or was it the other one she wrote?
I think that one is a 2-author book, but she did write it.
Now I'm making sure of myself here. Yeah, I was right. Cataclysm, yeah. Because Convergence was Zoraida. So, yeah. I think she wrote Cataclysm by herself. Yeah, she just wrote that by herself.
Oh, okay.
Because those were the adult novels.
I see.
Cataclysm was the conclusion of the... That was the one where we got the battle of... where we got Donna stuff.
Oh, yeah. Night of 1,000 Sorrows or whatever.
Yeah. But I like it. I like what she's doing, and of course, once again, I appreciate seeing some non-Force users at the forefront of things.
Yeah.
And hey,
hi, thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, we're about to wrap up.
Yeah.
Because this guy needs a nap.
I'm tired. I went to bed at 5, woke up at 8.
So, with that though, so are you also kind of giving it a 7-ish?
Yeah, I'll give it like a 7.5, I guess.
Yeah, it earns it. I think. Anyways, so yeah, I think that's going to conclude our review portion of it. Once again, it can be found currently in the Star Wars Insider, issue 224. It's going to look like this. It's going to have Jabba. Go sleep, yeah. I'll pick it up later. It's fine. But thank you all for watching today's episode of Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I've been your host, Caleb. Be sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe to us. You can find us at Escape Reality Films on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and TikTok. You can also show your support for us by joining our Patreon, which is at Escape Reality Films. Shout out to Jennifer Brantley, who's currently in the YouTube chat.
Thank you.
There you can watch our YouTube content before it's publicly available. So if you want to watch some sessions of Grim Hollow Boom Boys before it's public, that's how you can do that for $5 a month. There will be a new episode either today or tomorrow that I'm going to post for Grim Hollow stuff. Also be sure to check out our Discord, which is also linked wherever you are watching, so you can become a part of our community. You can also find me on Twitter at EscapeReality94 and Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Caleb.Lockwood. Seth.
Hey, every Sunday you can catch some friends of ours over on Trials of Naboo on YouTube at the Steam Dungeon from 5 to 7 Central Standard Time. We're dealing with some house problem. We're keeping the general city safe. Meanwhile, the other party is still dealing with a cult whose evil ritual keeps summoning these sand zombies, aka the Husks, into town. Hopefully things will be fine if they manage to, not die.
Yeah.
Also, they have to keep people from dying who haven't killed anyone in anger.
Ooh. Okay.
While also doing that. So far they've succeeded.
All right. So once again, that's on YouTube at the Steam Dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
And
Trials of Naboo, 5
yeah.
to 7 Central Standard Time.
So once again, thank you all for watching. Join us next week as we talk about Visions Takashi Okazaki #1. So another one-shot comic for the Vision stuff. I think it's another Ronin-focused one from what I've seen on the preview images. So I think that'll be fun. I've spoken.